Hey everyone, and welcome to our explainer. For years, if you've heard anything about doing business in Africa, it's been all about one thing: explosive growth. But what if that's only half the story? Today, we're going to look past the headlines and get into what it really takes to succeed.
I mean, for the last 25 years or so, the story has been Africa rising. You've heard it, right? It's this narrative of a continent with some of the best growth rates on the entire planet, pulling in global investment and attention like never before.
But here's the question we really need to ask. Is a booming GDP the only thing that matters? Does that number really tell you everything you need to know about the challenges and the opportunities on the ground? Well, spoiler alert, the short answer is a big, fat no. And that's really where our journey today begins.
All right, first up, let's quickly unpack this growth story, the economic narrative that's really dominated the conversation for decades now. You know, it's been such a dramatic shift. If you go back to the 1980s, the whole conversation was about Afro-pessimism. But over the last quarter century, that has done a complete 180. Consistent economic expansion has fueled this powerful, and I mean powerful, new sense of optimism. And look, this isn't just talk. The numbers are absolutely real. This growth has been like a magnet for foreign capital, and it's massively accelerated trade both within the continent and with the rest of the world. It's a dynamic that has literally reshaped global economic maps.
But this is where things get really interesting. Now we need to pivot and make a really important distinction: the difference between simple economic growth and a much, much deeper concept: societal development.
So what is the difference? Well, think of it like this. Economic growth is quantitative. It's the hard numbers, right? GDP, market value. It's a vital sign, for sure, but it's just one piece of the puzzle. Societal development, on the other hand, is all about the quality. It's a much bigger picture that looks at things like well-being, education, quality of life. You could say growth is about getting bigger, but development is about getting better.
And this chart, wow, this chart really brings that idea to life. Just look at the data from 2018. You've got Rwanda with a phenomenal GDP growth rate of 8.6%. Amazing, right? But then look at its Human Development Index, which measures things like life expectancy and education, and it's on the lower side. Then you have South Africa with really slow growth, less than 1%, but a much higher HDI. It's the perfect illustration of how one number just doesn't tell you the other story.
And that's the absolute key takeaway here. If you are only looking at those big economic indicators, you're missing the reality of what it's actually like to live, work, and build a business in these places. You've got to look deeper.
So, where do we look for that deeper understanding? Well, the answer lies in one of the most vital and honestly one of the most overlooked areas: culture.
I absolutely love this quote from an employee in Nigeria. It frames diversity not as some kind of problem you have to manage, but as this beautiful, intricate Persian carpet, a source of real strength and richness. And that really sets the perfect tone for what we're about to talk about.
Now, to have this conversation, we need to be on the same page. When we talk about ethnicity here, we're not using it as a divisive term. It's simply understood as the identity of a social group that shares common ground. You know, things like language, values, traditions. It's a huge, fundamental part of who someone is.
So, how does culture actually show up in the workplace? Well, it's not a simple good or bad thing. As we're about to see, its effects are super complex, and more often than not, they're two-sided.
So to make this really concrete, let's look at a couple of real-world examples from the research. We're going to focus on two really powerful cultural elements: the role of age and the importance of family and community ties. Okay, so here's the challenge. In many African cultures, elders are deeply respected, which can be a huge, huge asset. But this quote from a manager in Cameroon, it shows you the flip side. That same respect can sometimes create friction with business needs, like sharing knowledge. It can create a bottleneck where a senior employee basically becomes a gatekeeper of information.
But now, check out the opportunity. The very same manager points out that those strong family and community ties, you know, the kind of thing that's often viewed with suspicion in Western business culture, can be an incredible motivator. That shared bond can create this extra layer of commitment and drive that you just wouldn't get any other way.
This slide just sums up that duality perfectly. Using a local dialect can make some people feel left out, sure, but it can also build instant trust. Seniority might block knowledge sharing, but it can also foster incredible mentorship and stability. It's never about the cultural element itself being good or bad. It's all about how it's understood and managed inside the organization.
So what does this all mean? How in the world do you navigate all this complexity to actually succeed? Well, that brings us to our final, and I think most important section. The first step is just admitting it. The old playbook of only analyzing GDP charts and market size is fundamentally incomplete. It's like trying to climb a mountain with a map that's totally flat. It just doesn't give you what you need.
So what's the new playbook? Well, first, you've got to move beyond just economic growth and really try to understand societal development. Second, and this is a big one, you have to stop thinking of culture as a soft skill and see it for what it is, a core business imperative. Third, you have to actively understand the two-sided nature of all these cultural dynamics. And finally, you have to learn to truly leverage diversity as that Persian carpet, a genuine source of strength and a massive competitive advantage.
Ultimately, the takeaway here is crystal clear. To truly succeed, leaders and organizations have got to move beyond the spreadsheets. They need to develop a deep, nuanced, and honestly, a respectful understanding of the cultural realities on the ground.
Which leaves us with one final big thought to consider. In the complex, dynamic, and incredibly opportunity-rich markets all across the African continent, maybe the most valuable asset isn't capital or some new technology. Maybe, just maybe, the new currency for success is cultural intelligence.